Coming up on the Tall Mike Wine Podcast.
Will you be speaking in tongues for us?
No, I did not receive that gift.
That would be another first on the podcast. Because I'm witty and clever, I am not wacky and zany.
Okay, that's true.
But, what did we know? We just wanted to get drunk.
That's amazing.
And we did. Since you brought up his name, I'm going to ask you, what's your obsession with Jeb Dunnick?
Now here you are, like not corporate podcasts at home.
That's right. And you heard me drop an F-bomb because I can do that on a podcast.
Do what you want. It's yours.
And now, the Tall Mike Wine Podcast.
The cell phones have been silenced. The wine is poured. And just like that, episode 10 of the podcast begins. Welcome to my podcast. I'm Tall Mike Wine. You may call me Mike. This is the wine podcast that tries not to bore you or intimidate you with too much overly geeky wine talk. We sip, and we are all over the world. 12 countries on 4 continents. Sadly, no one seems to be aware of us in Australia or Africa. If you know people there, let them know. Spread the word. 33 of these United States. Hi there, Waukesha, Wisconsin. Also, Oregon has joined the party. Ashland, Grants Pass, Portland, and even Saginaw, Oregon. And a big welcome to Ripton, Vermont. Thanks for listening. Here in Northern California, spring is flirting with summer, and we've had some warmer days, but the nights are still quite cold. Today, it's gorgeous. I'm recording the podcast this time on a Monday afternoon in May, the day after Mother's Day, and here's another first. We are talking to someone, thanks to the magic of technology, who is in Walla Walla, Washington. My fave wine region alliteration, Walla Walla, Washington. Definitely on the wine map and has been for a good 20 years. The first wineries there actually popped up right around 1980, and things simmered for a while, and then there was a real boom in the 90s and early aughts. Now it's a wine destination, and I traveled there myself in November of last year, and I'll talk more about my trip in a little bit, but let's first get my guest in here via the Zencastr program from Walla Walla, Cara, Almberg. Welcome, darling.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you. What's everyone in Walla Walla talking about these days?
Oh, man. How busy we are this beautiful spring. COVID, of course, is always on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's just loving the weather right now. We're really appreciating it.
What's it doing?
We got sunshine, we got heat. We had 80s last week. We're mid-60s, low 70s right now. A little windy, of course, here during the spring. But other than that, it's like perfect patio weather. It really is.
It's already happening.
It's happening.
It gets hot there in the summer. How hot does it get?
Triple digits for sure, easily. But it's a dry heat. But last July, August, we hit triple digits. We hit triple digits in September. That was god-awful pouring outside in that weather. But people were drinking the cab in 101 degrees. So,
whoa. Cara and I actually met via mutual follows on Twitter. I don't know how long ago, a couple years ago?
Yeah.
We both tweet about wine. We met briefly IRL late last year, but I don't really know you. So let's get the whole story. You're in Walla Walla now.
I am.
And you have some Pacific Northwest roots, right?
Very much so, yes.
Okay, let's get the whole life story out there.
Okay.
Where did it all start?
It all started in Quilcene, Washington, where I was
born. Quilcene. Out on the
Quilcene Oysters, right in the bay.
Right, out on the coast.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Super small town. My parents were young and poor, and I'm the second oldest of 4, but we moved all over probably every 5 to 6 years between Tri-Cities, Washington, to Missouri, to North Dakota, back to Tri-Cities. My dad he was a pastor for most of my life, and so that's what moved us around.
From church to church.
From church to church.
What denomination?
Pentecostal, Assemblies of God in particular.
Will you be speaking in tongues for us?
No, I did not receive that gift.
Okay, darn. That would be another first on the podcast.
That would be great.
When did you first have wine and think, hey, wine is cool? Why not wine?
So I graduated college in North Dakota and moved back to Tri-Cities, where I originally went to elementary and middle school. My parents were back here. and deciding on where I wanted to go to. I wanted to either be a physical therapist or a surgical nurse. And so I decided to dabble in a tasting room part-time just because I needed something and somebody recommended it to me. But at that time, I had some friends, Matt Dotson and now his wife, Stephanie. They worked at Alexandria Nicole Cellars in Horse Heaven Hills here. He was a winemaker, assistant winemaker at first, turned winemaker. And we'd always drink some great wines when we were at their house or if we went out to restaurants. I had some red wine in college. I was mostly beer and Captain Morgan, to be honest.
Sure. It's college.
I was like, this shit's kind of good. Wine can taste good. I love science. I could just geek out about it. I was just kind of like, oh, there might be something here. So stayed part-time. And then 10 years later, here I am full-time.
But you started in a tasting room at Alexandria Nicole then?
So my first tasting room was Fidelitas on Red Mountain. Charlie Hoppus.
Charlie.
Staff tasting with him, and it kind of blew my mind. We were talking about the current releases at the time. I was just so enthralled and was just like, I want to learn more. I can do another year in here and then go to school. It's fine.
So then you got pulled in.
I got sucked in, mostly on Red Mountain.
That's cool. And then was there a time when you were in Woodinville?
Yeah, I was in Woodinville for a hot minute. I worked at Matthews and Tenor Winery and then Woodinville Wine Cellars when that was up and running. I think it's no more now. Woodinville is its own beast. The hospitality is just a little bit different. You're pouring more, talking less. It's a pretty crowded area and just not my cup of tea. So I moved back out to Eastern Washington to be on this side of the state for wine.
Well, Woodinville, and I've talked about Woodinville on the podcast before, and for people who don't know what it is a region where there aren't any grapes growing. It's just wineries, and they're all basically reduced down to their basic function, which is making the wine from the grapes that are trucked over from the east side and then pouring the wines in the tasting room, and everything is in warehouse space, and these warehouse spaces are all stacked next to each other. So you can literally pull into a parking lot of a warehouse complex and go to 15 wineries without moving your car one time. Yeah. It's like wine country without the country. That's kind of cool. But like you said, it's different. The hospitality is different.
Yeah.
Because there's no tour of the vineyard.
There's no tour of the vineyard. It's north of Seattle. So you're still in like kind of a busy suburb packed area. People
totally
go there just to kind of just drink. You would get the occasional customer who would really ask questions and want to dive into the wines. But for the most part, it was just pour me another and thank you. Next.
And this is another extension of the bar scene.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much.
Or just somewhere fun to go on a weekend.
Yeah. All the buses, all the bachelorette parties. Yeah.
So then you left and you went to Walla Walla?
Yeah, I went to Walla Walla. I worked at Trust Cellars with good old Steve. Love that guy. Trust Cellars is just a small tasting room that was downtown. He's now just in Woodinville, actually. But loved working there. And then back to I bounced around a lot. Then back to the Tri-Cities Red Mountain area. And now back in Walla Walla. Here I am. So worked harvest in between, did seasonal tasting room jobs. Tasting rooms are very seasonal out here. A lot of people shut down or hours of operation are definitely cut down. So there was a lot of working in coffee shops in between those busy
in the winter time.
Yeah.
The cold, hard Walla Walla winter. In a couple of respects, it's very different than what I've got going on down here, of course, because I'm in Sonoma, basically a little over an hour's drive from San Francisco, the big city.
The big city.
You are, 5 hours from Portland and a little longer than that from Seattle?
It's about 3.5 from Portland and 4 hours from Seattle.
You drive fast.
Maybe 4.5 hours from Seattle.
But you're basically just isolated out there in the far southeastern corner of the state.
Spokane is the biggest city that's closest to us by 2.5 hours. And Spokane's not that big.
It's not that big, but there's comforts there.
There are comforts there. So,
I did a long hitch in Spokane.
Did you really?
I did. Oh. I can tell you all about it if you want. That's where I actually transitioned from radio to dabbling in restaurant wine work to then full-time restaurant work in wine. Because Spokane, it's not a big city, and it's a great place to reinvent yourself.
Yes, I can see that. When was this?
I got there in 1995,
Okay.
and I went to work for a guy that I had worked for in Yakima on the radio.
Oh.
The program director in Yakima got fired. He ended up in Spokane, and he said, I'm going to call you when I have a space for you. Because, radio back then, and I'm sure it's still kind of like this, is all about going to work in the smallest town and then moving your way up. So you talked about Quilcene. Like I worked in Aberdeen, Hoquiam, my first jobs, and then moved around and finally got to Yakima and then moved to Spokane, where I was the afternoon host on a station called Rock 106. And then the station changed format, and a lot of times that means you get fired.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the station's changing format to a format that I actually wanted to get into.
Oh.
More of an adult alternative sort of thing. And they wanted me to be the morning guy.
Whoa. Isn't that kind of a big deal?
That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, no fucking way.
Why not?
Because I'm witty and clever. I am not wacky and zany.
Okay, that's true. There is definitely, yeah. Okay, I feel that.
But when they told me they wanted me to do the morning show, and I said that to them, I'm not wacky and zany. They said, no, we don't want wacky and zany. We want witty and clever like you do in the afternoons, only we'll just add news, sports, and weather and traffic on the 8s, and then you'll have a morning show. And I thought, all right, we'll take the afternoon show, we'll plug it into the mornings. That's fine. You think about those guys that are on the radio in the morning. They're all happy and peppy.
They are.
But you don't realize that they got up at like 3:30.
Yeah.
And then to get to the station and do the prep and get the show ready to be on the air by 6, that killed me. I did like 2.5 years of that, and I was done. I was toast. I was a baked potato, put a fork in me. And at that time, I was kind of losing my interest in the corporatized radio world.
Okay.
So I just sort of bailed.
Now here you are, like not corporate podcasts at home with wine.
That's right. And you heard me drop an F-bomb, and I was like, because I can do that on a podcast.
You do what you want. It's yours.
So I transitioned. I had been dabbling in wine. I'd met some wine people in Spokane, met some restaurant people, had been actually playing around on the weekends at a fancy little restaurant called Mizuna as their wine guy. And then when the radio thing stopped, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a hiatus, like 6 months. I'll work in restaurants, and then I'll move to Portland or move to Seattle for the next chapter in the radio story. And I'm still on hiatus from radio. 23 years later. Yeah, so I was in Spokane when I switched over, and then it was like, okay, 4 years later, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in the restaurant business now.
Yeah.
I should go somewhere where the restaurant business is a little more of a big deal. So I moved first to LA and then to the Bay Area.
Spokane's been cleaning up their act. They got some beautiful restaurants now in that area.
Let me reach over here and grab some wine. Sorry, sipping.
Get some vino.
What's in your glass, Cara?
I am drinking one of my best friend's creation. He does like 500 cases. It's called Sonder.
Saunder?
Onder. He makes like just these ready to drink wines. This is a 2020 red and it's killer.
Woo.
Yeah, it's just his red table blend. I posted about it before and people are like, oh my God, I love that stuff. He does a rosé, Roussan. He did an orange wine that sold out so quickly last year. He does a Syrah, Grenache, and a Mourvedre. They're just really easy, low alcohol, super easy to drink.
Did you say what that was?
He doesn't have a blend on it. So I'm definitely
red wine.
Yeah, it just says red wine. I'm going to guess it says field blend. I'm going to guess probably a GSM of some sort.
Okay.
Yeah.
A very typical Walla field blend.
Yeah.
Of the Rhone varietals, the red ones. Is he using any sort of special techniques to get it ready early, like carbonic maceration?
He does a little carbonic maceration.
I've been wanting to say those words on my podcast.
Say it again. It sounds
because last week at my winery, Nicholson Ranch in Sonoma, California, someone asked me about carbonic maceration.
Oh, yeah.
And I sort of had to say, I know they use it a lot in Beaujolais to create these lighter, fruitier wines, super fruity wines that are not meant to be aged.
Yeah.
Just like you described this wine you're drinking. This is like, no, drink it now. It's best now.
Yeah.
I really didn't have the concept of carbonic maceration. I knew it had to do with CO2 in the tank and blah, 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 blah. So then I went home that night and I just geeked out on it.
Did some research?
I did. And now I can tell you all you need to know about carbonic maceration. I pretty much had it right. I didn't realize the tank was sealed and they pumped the CO2 into it. And the grapes are supposed to ferment from the inside out. And when they reach a certain amount of alcohol, they burst open.
Have you ever, this is one of my favorite things, when working harvest and digging out a tank, you'd find like the berries that weren't crushed for some crazy reason. Love it. And you just pop it in your mouth. It's a berry full of booze. It's the best thing ever. If you've ever, smelled or sipped Everclear for whatever reason, I have. It's literally just a boozy little grape, little pebble in your mouth. And it's phenomenal.
We used to have parties where we'd fill a garbage can full of booze.
Stop.
And then dump fruit into it.
Stop, yeah.
And then maybe a big jug of like cheap soda pop.
Ugh.
Just to water it down a little bit. But then you let the fruit soak overnight in the booze.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the party the next afternoon, you'd be walking around with a pitcher and people would be saying, no fruit, no fruit, no fruit.
Yeah.
Because the fruit was just soaked.
So boozy.
It's going to kill people. No, I can't.
Do you ever have there's a couple names for it, pink panty droppers, or it's like vodka, beer, and lemonade. Pink panty droppers because you use pink lemonade. When you say it out loud, you're like, I'm going to mix beer and vodka and lemonade together. But when you do end up drinking it, you're like, I could crush this.
The most similar thing I've ever had was something I did in high school. This guy I went to high school with, my parents, we had sailboats and they'd go out of town all the time on the weekends. And then I'd have friends come over and they'd bring whatever they had to drink and we would drink it. And this one friend of mine, Greg Clark, he came over and he said, we need the blender. I'm like, okay, I'll get the blender out. He's got a bottle of tequila. He's got some beer and he's got some of those little frozen concentrated limeade cans. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The little ones.
The little ones.
So you take the blender and fill it with ice, dump the frozen concentrated limeade in, and then take one of those little empty cans full of beer and one little empty can full of tequila and dump it all into the blender and then crack an egg in it. Yes, an egg.
Why?
I don't know.
What is the point of an egg?
I was 17. Why? I just did it. It was his recipe.
You're like, I'm not asking questions. This is great.
The drink tasted delicious, but it smelled like what the name of the drink was, according to him. It was called a wet dog, but it tasted great.
I want to know.
Tequila,
I know the reasoning and the science behind the egg part.
I could probably bring in some of my bartender people, and they would tell you. I mean, egg whites are used in cocktails.
Don't sour. I mean, yeah, sours, eggs. Like, did you do yolk and white and all?
The whole egg, yeah. I'm sure it would been a little more sophisticated. It's probably, a bastardization of some recipe that probably just called for an egg white in a martini shaker.
Whatever.
and said it went into a blender with ice. But, what did we know? We just wanted to get drunk.
That's amazing.
And we did.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about being a woman in the wine industry. Because, truth be told, you're not the first woman guest I've had on the show, but you're the first woman solo guest. The other woman that I've had on the guest was part of a team, a husband and wife team. I don't know if you listened to episode 8, the Schurmeisters and their love story.
Oh, their love story.
It's great. You should go back and listen to it.
Deal.
It seems to me that the people who make the winemakers, that's a field that's dominated by men. What about the part that you and I do, the consumer end? Tasting rooms. I work in a tasting room with mostly guys, and that just seems to be a function of we put out ads for tasting room people, and we get guys applying, and not too many ladies. I know you have some women working with you because I've looked on your website for the Wallace Winery. If I just say, talk about women in the wine industry, what would you say? Is it even a thing?
Women in the wine industry, it's such a thing. It's a huge thing. I feel like there are.
But are they like being held down? Is there a glass ceiling? Is there, I don't know what I'm even trying to get to here, but I just know that it's a thing.
Is there a glass ceiling? Sure. There's some sort of glass ceiling. I think only because there's this idea that because the industry is dominated by men, we as women don't maybe think to, or did think to be like, I want to be a winemaker too. We just were like, I guess it's a guy's job. I don't know. But there are more amazing women coming. I mean, Oregon is about 50-50 men-women ratio of winemakers. Washington State, yeah, it's dominated by men. You'll see mostly women in the tasting room in Washington State. Our company, The Walls, mostly women. Our GM's a woman. I'm a woman. Tasting room manager. I have Valerie. We got Susie in the cellar. She's amazing. We have Kyla. So it's mostly women at The Walls. And we had a female winemaker, Allie Mayfield. We have an amazing viticulturist here, Sadie. She's amazing. She's a vineyard manager here. Incredible. Her vineyard's stellar, world class. So
the reason that I bring up the topic is because, I started this podcast back in January, and it took me like 3 months before I had a woman guest on the show. And I thought, is it because I only hang out with guys? That's not correct. And then when I was up in Walla Walla in November, I met some nice ladies. I met Ashley Trout at Brook and Bell.
Yeah, Brook and Bell. She's amazing.
And I know Kathy Corazon. I know Carrie Shields, some great women winemakers. Mia Klein down here is incredible. So I just wonder, I don't know where the state of the wine industry is in regards to women in general.
I think it's definitely opened up. We have the Walla Walla University, or community college, Walla Walla Community College. They have a viticultural program, and a lot of ladies are going through that, which I think is really cool. I had a friend, Jasmine. She went through it. Now she's in Hood River, slinging wine. She's not making wine yet, but she's selling it. And I know she wants to do a label sooner or later. So I think it's becoming more common to see women in it. I don't know why it seemed like the job for a woman's role in the industry stopped at the tasting room, being a tasting room manager or doing the wine club, maybe because we can multitask and we're more organized than most men. Just going to put that out there. But then as a winemaker, you have to be insanely organized.
Right, totally.
And be able to multitask.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that glass ceiling is slowly diminishing. I think it's going away, which I really appreciate. I don't have the desire to make wine, but I definitely want to move up the ladder. I'd love to be a GM of a brand one day.
Be the president.
Hell yeah. Sign me up.
Let's see what else I've got in my notes here.
Yeah, what else you got?
Oh, you work at a winery in Walla Walla called The Walls, which is more alliteration. Walla Walla, Washington, Walls Winery.
Mm-hmm. So nice.
Give them a little love there. I know it's mostly Syrah stuff, right?
We do beautiful Rhones. Yeah, we do some great Syrahs sourced from two pretty iconic places in Washington State, Red Mountain in particular. It's known for King of Cab, but I hate that it's known for King of Cab because I think Rhones do amazing over there. Absolutely incredible. And then out of the Walla Walla Valley, the Rocks District, we source some Syrah from there. So we do a lot of Rhones, but we do some Bordeaux's, and they're very well crafted. Cab, which is so good. We just actually, Jeb, I love Jeb, gave it 97 points.
Jeb is on my list to talk about.
Oh, yes. My favorite human ever. Well, up there. So Jeb just gave our Cab from Red Mountain 97 points. And then we have this Pasha label that's Rock District focus, and he gave the 19s 97 and higher. So we're not just like this one of 1,000 wineries. I think we're top 10 easily in Washington State. Easily.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Walls. And you got a brand new tasting room.
Yeah, we just did a remodel. It's amazing.
Because sadly, I visited in November, and one sadly was I was getting phone calls on my drive up that Washington State's shutting down again. We're only going to be able to taste outdoors. And of course, I come from Sonoma, where tasting outdoors in November is not an issue because it's usually pretty nice still. But in Walla Walla, things can get cold. Yeah. Luckily, I was there in a nice sunny week, although I had wineries canceling on me because they just couldn't do outdoor tastings. I managed to find enough places that had fire pits and outdoor space and had a lovely time, but sadly did not get to taste at your winery.
No.
But I saw you.
You did. We ran into each other at Hadaway.
That's the nature of the small town. My first night, there I am, dining alone. My first restaurant meal in a long time. Lots of social distancing. And across the room, I see this woman walk in, and I'm like, that looks like Cara Almberg over there. So I sent her a glass of the wine I was drinking.
You did.
It's kind of old school. Excuse me, would you send a glass of this over to that woman over there? And the server was kind of like, who's this guy? Humphrey Bogart?
Well, I was with my roommates, and both of them were like, are you like VIP over here? And I was like, and she's like, it's from that gentleman over there. And I look over and I was like, oh my God. Yes.
Yes. In a small town, this can happen.
Yes.
All right. Since you brought up his name, I'm going to ask you, what's your obsession with Jeb Dunnick? Because you tweet, and if you're not following Cara Almberg on Twitter, and it's Cara Almberg all merged with one A in the middle, CARALMBERG.
Mm-hmm.
She tweets about the wine she's drinking, says funny things, and then once in a while, just out of the blue, tweets at Jeb Dunnick. Like, she's like, hey, here I am, Jeb. Here I am.
Okay, so I didn't know this until one of my really good friends who's been in the industry for a really long time asked, she was like, so how did you ever meet Jeb? And I was like, well, just through social media. She's like, wait. You've never met him in person. And I was like, I have not had the honors yet. And I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago when I got back on Facebook, and my Facebook, I kind of treated like a LinkedIn. I just wanted to friend people only in the restaurant and booze industry. And I wanted to keep it very that way with my posts as well. I didn't want to do anything mushy and personal and just write it in my journal, keep it.
Yeah.
Facebook.
Like you said, like LinkedIn.
Yeah. And so Twitter was kind of the same thing, but you get more of, I think, a personal side on Twitter. Anyways, so I think I befriended Jeb without really knowing who he really actually was, because I was young.
And if you don't know who he is a wine writer.
Started with Robert Parker, now branched off on his own.
Right.
And my friend Carrie said, she goes, it was all of a sudden Jeb kept liking and commenting every now and then on your things. And everyone was like, who's this Cara chick? Wait, who's Cara? Wait, who's it? Why is Jeb interacting with Cara? Like, who is this chick? Is she like a critic? Is she a winemaker? Is she a somm? Like, why? And it's just because I have a shitty sense of humor, and I'm transparent. What you see is what you get. My obsession with Jeb is he writes about and scores my favorite region, CDP, Châteauneuf-du-Pape. I fell in love with those wines, that region, forever ago. And how he writes about how he writes about all wines, but how he writes about those wines in particular, it gets me extra excited about drinking those wines. I feel like maybe we have a pretty similar palate as well. So I know that whatever kind of Jeb likes, I like, where there are other critics out there that will write about wines. And I'm like, yeah, clearly we're not on the same page.
He's your wine soulmate.
He is.
He's your palate soulmate.
My palate soulmate. I would love to meet him one day. I'm going to give him the biggest bear hug. And I hope we can not drink wine together. I want to drink a beer with him or something. I want to do the opposite of what.
Pink panty dropper.
Yeah, sure. I'll just keep feeling like a little shaker when I see him or something. Absolutely.
Get him good and drunk.
I do like to keep him on his toes. You're right. I'll tweet at him. For instance, there was that one time where I was like, hey, Jeb, are you an orange juice or an apple juice guy? Like, he never responded, but I know he for sure saw it and had a good laugh.
Speaking of drinking, I'm drinking a Sauvignon Blanc.
What are you drinking? Sauv Blanc. Okay.
It's a Sauvignon Blanc I just got. It's brand new, and it's the first ever made by J.B. Neufeld in Yakima.
Oh my gosh, love those guys.
It's their first Sauvignon Blanc, and the story I heard was that, so J.B. Neufeld is Justin and Brooke Neufeld, who I met shortly after I was in Walla, I cruised up to Yakima. And I joined their club when it first started a year ago. Then they made a Sauvignon Blanc for the first time this year. I got to taste the Sauvignon Blanc out of the tank with Justin when I was up there in November. We ate tamales and drank Sauvignon Blanc out of the tank.
Tamales for sure.
So this was a request by Brooke Neufeld, his wife. Justin's a Yakima boy. Brooke is a West Side girl. She's from Whidbey Island.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I think they met in college at UW. And I could be wrong, but I believe that's the case. And then, he brought her back home so he could make wine in Yakima. So she said, I want a Sauvignon Blanc. I want something for the summer. And I want something fresh and refreshing. And I want it to remind me of the beach on Whidbey Island. So he had this label created, which is really pretty. And he got fruit from the Schmidt Vineyard, which I had never heard of before. This stuff's candy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. You open it and it's like, okay, this is a little bit grassy. There's a little bit of you're just starting to get a notion of the fruit aromas, and then you take a sip and it's like, woo!
Yeah.
It's all like gooseberries and grapefruit.
Oh.
And your mouth just keeps watering, and I'm just like, oh yeah,
my mouth is watering listening to you.
This is what I need for the summer. I will most likely be buying more of it.
Yeah,
I had him send me 6 bottles in my.
I love a good Sauv Blanc. There's some tasty ones out there in Washington State. Not a ton. I wish there were more.
It's not very well known in Washington. The whites in Washington, everybody thinks, oh, that's Marsanne, Roussanne, maybe Chardonnay, which is weird. Yeah, so that's what I've got going on right now.
Love it.
Yes. I listen to this jazz radio station here. It's based out of one of the community colleges. And they do a show on Friday mornings and they bring in some, jazz musician. And the woman who hosts the show, she talks like a jazz DJ. She's got a really voice. She's got a really funny delivery. As somebody who spent 15 years in radio, and mostly when people tell you how to talk on the radio, like you get critiqued, it's all, you need to sound a little more natural. Like she does the opposite of that. She has this very stereotypical, I can't even mimic it right now, but she's great. She's definitely got the legit jazz knowledge. She throws it down. She brings in a jazz musician every Friday, and they talk about the Desert Island Discs. What 10 jazz records would you want with you if you were stranded on a desert island? So I am going to ask you, Cara Almberg, what would be your desert island wine?
Oh, what would be easy. Alsatian Rieslings. Give me all day long.
Okay, that didn't take long.
No, it's literally, oh my gosh, I love the range that you can get with it, but just like that, my mouth is watering. I don't think I even have any. I've always wanted to cellar them. Alsatian, German, Austrian Rieslings. And I never do, because I get so excited. I just drink them right away.
It certainly would fit the climate of a desert island.
Yeah.
To have something refreshing like that and complex.
Yeah.
And beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's talk about other desert island things. What about food? One food thing.
Like
you had to eat it. You're stranded, and that's all you get to eat.
Like a small meal, or does it have to be like a snack?
Whatever you want. You're just going to be stuck eating it until you get rescued.
Oh, this is a great question. I would probably pick chips and salsa.
I like that.
I could eat it all day long. Like
with the Alsatian Riesling.
I could take like the salsa and maybe get some crummy leaves or mushrooms involved and make like a vegan taco. I could take chips and like make some.
You might be able to catch a fish.
Yeah.
So you got chips and salsa and a fish fresh out of the ocean.
Boom.
And an Alsatian Riesling.
What can get any better than that?
I don't know. What article of clothing would you want to be wearing?
A t-shirt.
Okay. Do you have a favorite one?
I do have this. I'm a hockey fan, as you probably know.
That's the last question on my list.
So I have a vintage from the early 90s Blackhawks hockey t-shirt that's like really big. It's a PJ shirt, really big and baggy. I'd take that.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a good image.
Yeah.
You're there on the desert island.
In a baggy shirt.
In your old baggy shirt, chips and salsa with Alsatian Riesling. Maybe Jeb Dunnock would pull up in a big boat and save you.
With Molly, his dog.
Okay. All right. So that's the last question on the list. You mentioned it already. Where and how did you develop your passion for hockey?
Great question. I went to high school, finished 8th grade through college in Grand Forks, North Dakota. It's pretty much part of Canada. It really is.
Right.
It really is. It gets cold as fuck there. It's not awesome. But everyone learns to skate before they walk there. It's a huge hockey community. A lot of hockey programs. Every park during the wintertime, they make makeshift ice rinks there. 1 or 2, maybe even 3, depending on the size of the park. So there's ice skating for everyone. And UND, University of North Dakota, has one of the best hockey men's leagues they had an amazing women's hockey league, but they shut that down. But the men's hockey league.
Wait, they shut down? What happened to lady hockey?
For some reason, they shut the program down, which is stupid. The Lamoureux twins, the girls, they played in the USA team and won, what was it? A gold and a silver, like second and first place in the Olympics. Like, are you kidding me? I guess the women's hockey side didn't have enough funding or something. I don't even know.
And then how did you become a fan of the Blackhawks? So
it was either the Chicago Blackhawks or the Minnesota Wilds. And the Minnesota Wilds are not awesome. So I picked the winning team in 8th grade.
I didn't even know. I've never heard of the Minnesota Wilds. Is that NHL?
Yeah.
That's an actual NHL team?
Yeah, Minnesota Wilds.
All right. I just think it's weird that there's like a team in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like nobody is getting out of school in Phoenix playing hockey. I guess they're going to a rink, but I just think of it as being one of those northern things where hockey is in your blood. I grew up in Seattle. Hockey's not in my blood. So is there anything else we need to know about you?
No.
I feel like this is one of those job interview questions. Is there anything that we would be surprised by to know about you? When are you going to come down and see me in Sonoma?
No, I need to. So I went to Sonoma once, but it was only for like maybe 48 hours at most. And I tasted at Literary, which blew my mind.
Was Ted there?
This was back in 2016.
Do I get that right? Is that Ted Lemon, Literary?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just threw his name out there. I'm like, wait.
No, but I'm definitely due for another. I went to Napa not too long ago. That was fun. Hung out with some friends who are in the industry there. So I would never do Napa unless I did it with my industry friends easily, like hands down. But Sonoma,
well, you couldn't afford to do it without your industry friends.
Seriously.
Napa is not cheap.
No. Like somebody just released their rosé for $75 a bottle.
Okay.
Napa, and I was like, hard pass. Like, I love
must be
rosé, but
best rosé ever
in the world. Seriously,
this is what happens when I say when wines are expensive. I say they're very proud of this wine.
They're very proud. Very proud. So no, I need to come down. Hopefully, COVID will not ruin any fun going forward. So I'm hoping to make it down either end of harvest or beginning of next year, maybe like March, April.
Wonderful.
I'll let you know.
Then you can join me at Nicholson Ranch.
Yes.
For a real live podcast.
Real live in person.
Even though this has been really fun.
It's been great.
The Tall Mike Wine Podcast was conceived and is written, produced, and edited by yours truly. Recorded on a program called Audacity. The podcast lives on a site called Buzzsprout. The theme music was written by Jeremy Marzin, and if you'd like your own coasters, suggest a guest, please send me an email at tallmikewine@gmail.com. I'm sorry I didn't get you any coasters to have before we started the interview, but, I have my own coasters.
I want 1 or 4.
Looks like that.
Love it.
It has my picture on it. To get a visual, all the visuals, so many visuals, follow me on Instagram at tallmikewine. Now your assignment, follow us or subscribe or whatever your podcast app of choice calls it. And if you haven't heard the previous episodes, check them out as well. From Scottsdale Pond in Novato, California, I am Tall Mike Wine. Thanks for listening. Cheers.